Greetings from Costa Rica. I hope you, your friends, and family are all doing well. My name is Matt Rosensteel, broadcasting from Playa Junquillal, Santa Cruz de Guanacaste, Costa Rica. It's March 25th, and I wanted to post a short update on new travel restrictions that are being implemented here in Costa Rica that have been causing quite a stir in the expat community, and rightfully so. My goal today is to provide context for that new restriction, really not to give my opinion, the pros and cons, or take a side, but rather really I hope that anybody who's heard about these new restrictions, who might be reacting to them, will have some more information as to the context, what the government is considering, and where we go from here. Today I'll just have a few short topics to discuss. First of all, that new restriction is the fact that the Costa Rican government has declared that they will be taking away the residency status of anyone who leaves the country during the emergency, whether you're applying for residency, whether you're already a resident, whether it's permanent, temporary, etc. Again, my goal is to provide context for this restriction and to give more information about really what that law is trying to do and how it fits into the broader picture. Next, I'll touch on who is currently in Costa Rica. We'll see who is most impacted by this restriction and what's going on there. And finally, I just want to share a quick thought on the recent history of the Costa Rican government, how they treat foreigners, and how really I think there might be reason not to panic quickly based on that history. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to email me. Again, my name is Matt Rosensteel. My address is matt@cbtamarindo.com. I work with Coldwell Banker, Tamarindo Realty. As a quick update today, there are 177 confirmed cases as of yesterday, actually, here in Costa Rica. That's been steadily growing ever since the first case was registered, I think in mid-March. I've been doing a couple updates, and some of those are foreigners. Most have been Costa Ricans, Ticos. And it's important to note that about a week ago, the Costa Rican government did impose essentially a closed border policy for foreigners and non-residents. They said that through April 12th, they would not be allowing any foreigners who are not residents or citizens, naturalized citizens, to come back into Costa Rica until that April 12th date at midnight. That restriction was already in place. The new aspect with residency is now taking effect as of March 25th. It's also important to note that the Costa Rican government had granted a kind of amnesty to anybody who is here in the country legally. They said that if you were here legally as of December 17th, 2019, you could stay through May 17th, 2020. Essentially what they did there was extend everybody's visas through May 17th of 2020 for the people who were here. So coming into this new restriction, we were operating in the context that the government had already eliminated foreigners, non-residents from entering the country, or prohibited that. And second of all, that they had given amnesty, more time for people to stay here in the country. Their new restriction that anybody who leaves during the time of emergency will lose their residency status is, first of all, a plea for people to simply stay here in the country. They've been given amnesty. They can do so legally. Now the plea is, don't leave during this time, because leaving and returning to Costa Rica is one of the primary risks that, instead of containing COVID-19, flattening the curve, that we're going to have more of those contamination clusters. That's the first motivation, and the Minister of Public Security was very clear about that. He said specifically, we are asking people not to leave. Another important item on the context. Everybody immediately in the expat community thinks of Americans who are living here as permanent tourists, or Canadians or Europeans who are living on 90-day visas and who have been coming and going and maybe are currently applying for residency. or they're thinking of people that have already earned their residency and suddenly need to leave. First of all, if you're in that boat, I'm extremely sorry that you do need to leave. Essentially, I do think that the government has issued this ultimatum as a blanket, very much a strategy that they had to apply to everyone in order to take care of one big threat. Costa Rica, in addition to all of the 90-day visitors from Canada, the United States, and Europe, has short-term visitors from neighboring countries. Tons and tons from Nicaragua, many from Panama as well. Also, at this time of year, going into April 12th, which is Easter Sunday, we're looking at one of the biggest times for international travel in Central America, because Easter is a huge Central American holiday, or rather, in Central America, Easter is huge. Everybody wants to travel, visit family, go home, return, on and on and on. There are numerous tourism deals that attract Central Americans to go from one place to another. The Costa Rican government is trapped between a rock and a hard place, looking at the fact that they're coming up to this extremely busy travel season. For many reasons, they're about to have a lot of people who want to travel to Nicaragua and come right back to Costa Rica to resume their jobs, their lifestyles, on and on. The government is saying, we can't have those people leave the country, come back, and create an entire new wave of cases. Quantifiably, obviously, to the north in Nicaragua, there are many more people looking at those short-term visas going up there. A lot of Panamanians would also be involved too. But really, the Costa Rican government, in looking at the need to protect their population and try and flatten the curve, they've decided we can't have those in and out border crossings. We need to close that loophole, and rather than only applying it to one country or the other, they did have to do a blanket rule. And we'll talk about why in the end of this. I don't think it's necessarily a 100% reason to panic if you are in the boat that you need to leave. To quickly touch on a point once again, really, we had already found out that nobody was going to be able to leave the country, enter the country, foreigners or non-residents, until April 12th. That travel ban, the border closure, had gone into effect specifically because Easter was going to be problematic. So that the effect of that travel ban was that virtually all foreigners and expats who are living here, a huge percentage who are not residents, not applying for residency, most of the people who are perpetual snowbirds or perpetual tourists did leave Costa Rica, at least in our community and the region that where we are. We saw mass departures because US, Canadian, European citizens were all of a sudden thinking, I'm not going to be able to get into my home country, or some other travel restriction is going to come up. And so pretty much everyone, foreigners who were not permanent residents, had left. I'd also say that a good percentage of residents, people who have some sort of official status already, had left Costa Rica, because we're seeing a trend that lots of people want to be closer to home if they're from the US, Canada, or Europe. Right now, their family needs them. They feel more comfortable dealing with a crisis at home. So I would estimate that a significant portion of all foreigners, expats, residents, non-residents, etc., had left the country prior to today. Finally, one of the points that didn't come up here as a slide, the Costa Rican government history that gives me room to be hopeful. We have seen here a number of times where the Costa Rican government has implemented legislation that very quickly angered the expat community. Foreign investment took a nosedive, or foreign investors in particular were angered by how a law was implemented. A recent example would include the declaration of who owns a corporation and the shareholders therein. That law was originally passed, I don't know how many months ago, and we're still phasing it into an implementation after the government granted extension after extension after extension. In other cases, the Costa Rican government has created amnesties, extensions. They're changing tax laws as we speak to accommodate people's needs as we face this crisis. I think that if you happen to be in the situation that you're here in Costa Rica, of someone who's applying for residency or currently a resident, you didn't leave before today and now you really have to get out of the country, let's hope that the Costa Rican government in 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, however long, is going to figure out a way to accommodate those situations where your only option was to leave, you didn't want to return, etc. I do not know, to me, having seen how the Costa Rican government can legislate to accommodate expats and foreign investment, I think it's not beyond the realm of possibility that we will see adjustments and changes. In the meantime, if you're here, we're hunkering down. We get to have even more excuses to stay in Costa Rica. Thank you very much for watching today. Again, if you have any questions, my name is Matt Rosensteel. You can email me at matt@cbtamarindo.com. I'm here in Playa Junquillal, Guanacaste, Costa Rica, and I work with Coldwell Banker Tamarindo Realty.